Picture this. A quiet morning, disrupted by an unexpected announcement. Mick Jones, the legendary guitarist and co-founder of Foreigner, has finally opened up about his long-standing tensions with Lou Gramm, the band's iconic frontman. Fans, who for years had speculated about the inner workings of Foreigner, were stunned by the frankness of Jones's words. He didn't just offer a nostalgic look back at the band's history. He laid bare the conflicts, frustrations, and creative differences that had plagued their partnership for decades. For years, Jones and Gramm had been seen as one of rock's most successful duos, two men whose combined talents produced timeless hits like Cold as Ice and I Want to Know What Love Is. But behind the polished facade of their music lay a relationship fraught with tension. According to Jones, Gramm's personality, while crucial to the band's early success, often became a source of friction. And what started as creative disagreements evolved into something deeper, a personal rift that would ultimately tear the band apart. In the late 1970s, Foreigner was riding high. With chart-topping albums and sold-out tours, they seemed unstoppable. Lou Gramm, with his powerful voice and magnetic stage presence, quickly became the face of the band, while Mick Jones, the mastermind behind many of their hits, worked tirelessly behind the scenes. But as the band's fame grew, so did the cracks in their partnership. Think of two forces pulling in opposite directions, one driven by creativity, the other by control. Jones, ever the meticulous craftsman, was known for his perfectionism in the studio, while Gramm, fueled by instinct and emotion, preferred spontaneity. Their differing approaches to music often led to heated arguments. Jones wanted precision, Gramm wanted passion. And as these creative battles intensified, so did the personal animosity between them. By the mid-1980s, tensions had reached a boiling point. Jones accused Gramm of being difficult to work with, citing his reluctance to follow the band's evolving musical direction. Gramm, on the other hand, felt stifled by Jones's insistence on controlling every aspect of their music. The situation became so untenable that in 1990, after years of simmering resentment, Gramm left Foreigner to pursue a solo career. And what should have been a triumphant era for the band instead became one marked by division and disappointment. Gramm's departure from Foreigner wasn't just a professional break, it was a personal gamble. He hoped to establish himself as a solo artist, free from the creative constraints he felt Jones had imposed on him. At first, things looked promising. His debut solo album, Ready or Not, released in 1987, spawned hits like Midnight Blue and showcased his talent as both a singer and songwriter. But fame outside of Foreigner didn't come easy. Picture Gramm standing on stage performing to crowds that came expecting the hits of Foreigner, only to be met with a tepid response to his solo work. The pressure mounted, and with it came new struggles. Behind the scenes, Gramm was battling more than just the music industry. He was facing personal demons that few knew about. While tensions with Mick Jones had driven Gramm out of Foreigner, his personal life was no less tumultuous. Fame, as always, came with a cost. The demands of constant touring, coupled with the pressures of maintaining a successful career, took a toll on Gramm's health. In the early 1990s, he began to experience severe headaches and fatigue, symptoms that were initially dismissed as stress. But in 1997, Gramm received a life-changing diagnosis. He had a brain tumor. Think of the fear and uncertainty that comes with such news. For a man whose voice had defined an era of rock music, the prospect of losing everything he had worked for was devastating. The tumor, though benign, required surgery, and the recovery process was long and arduous. Gramm's weight ballooned due to the medication he was prescribed, and his voice, once powerful and unwavering, was left weakened. The experience left him deeply scarred, both physically and emotionally. While he eventually recovered and returned to music, the ordeal changed him. He was no longer the same man who had belted out Jukebox Hero to packed arenas. He had faced mortality and come out the other side, but not without bearing the marks of the battle. In 1992, after years apart, Lou Gramm and Mick Jones made the bold decision to reunite and bring Foreigner back to life. For fans, it was a thrilling moment, one that reignited hopes of recapturing the band's glory days. Picture it. Gramm stepping back onto the stage beside Jones, their once iconic partnership seemingly renewed, the echoes of their classic hits filling arenas once again. Crowds saw two legends side by side, ready to reclaim their place in rock history. But behind the scenes, the story was far more complicated. Old tensions, though momentarily buried, lingered just beneath the surface. Gramm and Jones may have shared a stage, but they didn't share the same vision. The years apart had done little to mend their fractured relationship. Think of a bridge built hastily over a raging river, sturdy enough to stand, but always on the verge of collapse. The cracks in their partnership, born from years of creative battles and personal resentment, were impossible to ignore. They tried to make it work, but every song recorded and every tour planned brought back memories of past disputes. Creative differences remained a constant source of friction. Gramm, ever the soulful frontman, pushed for music that stayed true to their roots, raw, emotional, and driven by his powerful voice. Jones, meanwhile, sought to evolve the band's sound, experimenting with new styles and production techniques. The result? A partnership that was more like a tug-of-war than a collaboration. Every decision was a negotiation, every recording session a test of patience. Fans heard the music, but they didn't see the silent battles waged in the studio, the tense meetings where egos clashed, or the lingering bitterness that hung in the air. And yet, despite the underlying discord, they managed to produce new music together, even releasing an album. But the harmony was superficial. While they appeared united in front of their audience, offstage, it was a different story. Picture a performance where the chemistry on stage seems real, but the silence backstage tells a different tale. Gramm and Jones may have shared the spotlight, but their connection was fading, strained by years of unresolved tension. By 2003, the inevitable happened. The rift between them had grown too wide to bridge. Gramm, tired of the constant conflict and feeling increasingly sidelined, made the difficult decision to leave Foreigner once again. This time, there would be no return. The split was final, marking the end of an era. For Gramm, it was a bittersweet farewell, a release from the tensions that had plagued him, but also the close of a significant chapter in his life. For Jones, it was a moment of reckoning. He continued to lead Foreigner, bringing in a new lineup and pushing forward, but the absence of Gramm left an undeniable void. Their separation was not just the end of a professional partnership. It was the end of a complicated relationship built on both brilliance and bitterness. Fans may have seen it as a mere parting of ways, but for Gramm and Jones, it was the culmination of years of clashing ideals and unhealed wounds. They had started as partners, grown into rivals, and now walked away from each other as strangers, each carrying the weight of their shared history. Gramm pursued a quieter life, stepping away from the limelight, to reflect on the turbulent journey he had endured. Occasionally he performed solo, but the intensity of his years with Foreigner had left its mark. It wasn't just about the music anymore. It was about finding peace after years of battles, both personal and professional. For Jones, leading Foreigner without Gramm meant redefining the band's identity. He pressed on, determined to keep the legacy alive, but the Foreigner that fans saw was no longer the same. It was a band that had weathered the storm, but the scars of that storm were impossible to hide. The reunion of 1992 wasn't a triumphant return. It was a brief truce in a long-standing war. It gave fans what they wanted, the magic of seeing Gramm and Jones together once more. But for the two men at its center, it was a fleeting attempt to reconcile what had already been lost. A moment in time when they tried to make it work, only to realize that some rifts, no matter how hard you try, can never truly be healed. Mick Jones's revelation today serves as a reminder of the complex legacy Lou Gramm leaves behind. He wasn't just a frontman. He was a man who gave everything he had to his music, often at great personal cost. His story is one of contrasts, triumph and tragedy, collaboration and conflict, love and betrayal. Gramm's voice helped define an era, but behind that voice was a man battling forces both external and internal. His conflicts with Mick Jones weren't just creative, they were deeply personal, rooted in a struggle for control and recognition. And while their partnership produced some of rock's greatest hits, it also left behind scars that never fully heal. As fans digest Jones's words, they are left to ponder the true cost of success. Behind every great band is a story of struggle, and behind every iconic voice is a person fighting battles the world may never fully understand. Lou Gramm's story isn't just one of music, it's one of resilience, loss, and the enduring quest for identity in a world that demands everything and gives little in return.